Okay, tonight we're peeling back the bandages on the bone breaking world of horror stunts and diving into the mind of a man whose own body became a battleground for terror. You've seen his work in A Nightmare on Elm Street, Predator 2, and The People Under the Stairs. Now he's writing his own brand of horror. Please welcome William R. Perry.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Hey, pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it. For those of us who do not know who you are or what it is you do,
What do I got, huh?
I know,
Uh,
right?
yeah, I was a stuntman back in the early 80s through the late 80s, early 90s. Did, like you said, a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, did 3, 4, and 6. People Under the Stairs, Return of the Living Dead, The Lost Boys. A lot of now what are considered horror classics. I didn't know that was going to be the case at the time. And I did a lot of other stuff too. Did some Star Trek and did Home Alone 2 and a bunch of other films. But the ones that people seem to remember are the good, gnarly, gritty horror stuff. And so that's my claim to fame, my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, we're gonna go share this, and so people can see
Ooh, in
what
action.
William R. Perry is all about.
Feel free to dance, people. The music's just getting in there.
I know, right? Jamming. Woo!
So this vid that you're seeing doesn't have dialogue in it, because who cares about dialogue? Let's seriously be love. This is just a sort of retrospective of stuff that I've done. This is People Under the Stairs. See, I'm blasting out of the wall, and it's like the giant al fresco on Bob. Sometimes one just doesn't deliver the food fast enough, so that's it. Gutter, fish, gutter like a fish, make it dinner. Wendy Roby, it's cool for words. Dinner time! Yum, yum,
Woohoo!
yum. Ooh. So yeah, People Under the Stairs, another Wes Craven movie. I actually, just in giving you my background, I also worked on a couple other films with Wes Craven. My first job ever, actually, and in that one, I was also, as I got out of the movie business, I don't know, 25 or so years ago, 30 years ago, I also was Wes Craven's web developer. We'd become friends through a stunt coordinator that was a common friend. And so I got a chance to work with him, get to know him a little better, just as a kind of a human being as well. So I've been really fortunate to have some real pedigree in my horror roots.
Working on Nightmare on Elm Street films, what was your most unique challenge or memorable moment that you experienced on the set?
Unique challenge. I would say the one that everybody's favorite, other than the original, if they have a favorite, is Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And in that film, there's this kid that's a wizard master, and Freddy, the kid's has had a suicide attempt and is in a wheelchair. Well, in his dreams, he can stand and walk and has magic, and so Freddy decides to chase him with a maniacal wheelchair from hell. And they put that wheelchair on wires so that it could chase me. And they also put it on the front of an ATV so it could also chase me around. And it was being pulled, when it was being pulled by wires, by a Volkswagen engine. So it was basically an engine over here, and they kick that sucker in gear, and then it pulls that thing. And they told me, run fast, don't trip. If those wires catch your leg, it will just kind of cut it off, whatever it goes through, leg, whatever. And so don't fall, don't trip, and don't get hit by the wheelchair, because it weighs quite a bit. And so we had to do it a handful of times, and they just said, "Run, run, run! Don't don't fall down." And I remember the actor Ira Hayden, who's become a friend, and he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, you do this, you do this one." He didn't want anything to do with that. But I happened to see some behind the scenes footage of it that somebody just sent to me not long ago, and it's 15 minutes of just the filming of that scene. Brought back a lot of really cool memories. But I remember looking at it, going, "Yeah, I do look a little. Uh, I'll just say concerned about the possibility of losing one of my legs." That's probably
So
a
was that a you're also known for like a one take kind of guy. Was that a one take?
That well, you know, most of the time, I would say we did the things pretty quickly. That one, there was a lot of angles, so we had to do it a number of times. And because of the special effects, back when they did these movies, they were considered low budget, although Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was actually the biggest budget of any of the nightmares that they had done. So there was a lot of creativity involved. And so how things worked and trying to make things work on a budget can be very challenging. So sometimes, you do things the best you can, and you just say, well, the stuntman's just going to have to look out for the wires. And so you just, kind of do whatever they ask you to do. So, it was done in quite a few takes. As I watched this 15-minute, making of video, I realized, yeah, that was actually more than a day of just running. And they would put the camera mounted on this sort of second chair that was mounted on top of the ATV, so it could chase me, and you wouldn't see any wires, and you could see that I could, run and run and run, and it wouldn't catch me. But again, they said, "Don't fall down." The ATV will run you over, because they really wanted it as close as they can get. And the tricky part is, they're in focus on a camera, so they want you to stay a very, very, strict distance away. You go too far ahead, you get too close, things are going to get blurry, things are going to get out of focus. So it's run fast, but run consistently. Don't go too fast, don't go too slow. Don't outrun the camera, and don't get run over. Safety first.
In Predator 2, thank you for that. In Predator 2, you portrayed the subway gang leader. How did you prepare for this role, and what was it like working on such an action intensive film?
That was a big deal for me. That was my first speaking role in a film, and it was a big budget film, and I was just so excited. I didn't think I was going to get the part, because they were looking for gang members, and I was this very preppy looking teenager guy. And so when I did get it, I was really excited. I just remember the whole week being like the best week of my life. All I could think about was doing this one thing and doing it well. And I was scared, but I really wanted to have some fun with it. The rest of the guys that were in the gang were these big, big guys, and I was supposed to sort of order them around. And even though my part was really, no bigger or smaller than any of the others, they really did sort of respond to that. We most of the guys were stuntmen as well, and so in doing it, we really became a bit of uh, a crew, and we were always making fun of people. We were always kind of just roughhousing and screwing around. And I think it did. It's a short scene, but it did really inform the way we did things. We really did want to act as a crew, and be assholes.
All right.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Give them a little bit of an idea of each one of these films if they haven't seen them yet, and what you did for each one.
Sure. That's Predator 2. Came out in, I think it was based in 1997, and I think we did it in 1986 or something like that. So it was supposed to be in the future. And the Predator, if you know the original Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator, these creatures come to Earth from time to time and hunt human beings. And in this particular film, they're looking for conflict, because their hunting is sort of
Yes.
hidden by the fact that there's conflict, whether it's a war. Well, this is the streets of Los Angeles in 1997, and all hell's broken loose. The gangs are everywhere, and so the predator decides to hunt in an urban uh, atmosphere. And myself and this gang are on a bus, or I'm sorry, the subway system, which didn't actually exist back then. And
True.
the predator sees, one of our guys pull out a gun, and then another guy pulls out a gun, and then the victim pulls out a gun, and then everyone on the bus and everyone on the train pulls out a gun, and the predator figures, this is my world, let's jump in, and he slaughters us all, of course. And just a lot of fun, a fun stunt to do, a fun little acting role to do. Great cast. It was Bill Paxton's birthday the other day. I have a little story about him that I had posted to Facebook and Instagram about what a cool guy he was. And
Share,
it's
share. I mean,
I'll, I'll
you
keep it short. It's not real
yeah,
long. But I got there and I'm nervous and I'm sitting in this chair and I'm dressed in my gang regalia, as you see in the picture there. And I'm sitting in this chair and it says Bill on it. And Bill Paxton walks up to me. I'm kind of looking down and he says, is your name Bill? I said, yeah. He goes, is it really? And I said,
yeah.
yeah. And he goes, well, you sit in my chair. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm feeling like a doof. And he says, no, no, no. And he says, what are you doing today? And kind of shyly and meekly, I'm like, oh, I'm just some gang member. I'm just a gang member. And he said, no, 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 no. Don't say it that way. He said, you ever see Terminator? And I said, of course, we all saw Terminator. And he said, that was that opening scene where Arnold's naked and he needs clothes and he approaches these two punks. And he says, that was the first role that anybody really looked at that I had done. And my career took off from that day. This is that day for you. Just enjoy it. You don't get this day back. You never get your first time on screen back. He said, 6 months from now, your face is going to be 90 feet across some screen someplace. And so do your best today. Really relax, calm down, think about what you're doing, really enjoy it. And it was just the nicest thing you could have done. I wasn't nervous after that. I felt really committed to what I was doing. And I really did remind myself to enjoy this moment that was everything I ever wanted wrapped up in one day. I wanted to be an actor since I was a little kid. And there I am on a $60 million budget show in the very same soundstage that they filmed Wizard of Oz. It says there's a
Oh
plaque
wow,
right in front of the place as you walk through the door. If that doesn't give you some chills, I don't know if you're a movie fan.
that's historical.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And there's these
wow.
amazing sets. There's the set where you see at the end of the film where there's a trophy wall, and just as a little Easter egg, they put in an alien from Aliens skull, hanging on the wall,
Yes.
just as a little Easter egg to fun, have some fun with the fans. And I just remember walking around going, "This is everything. This is everything I ever wanted since I was 6 years old, and
That's
I'm here."
incredible.
Yeah, and I've got this chance to do it. And Bill Paxton just couldn't have been a nicer guy about it. He wanted the best from me, and he wanted me to enjoy it. And he didn't want me just to let that day go as if it was just a typical day. Don't try to act cool. Enjoy it. What the hell,
Yes.
man? You worked your ass off to be here. Dig it, completely envelop yourself in all of this. And I really did. I mean, I say to my wife, sorry, that was the best week of my life. Not my children being born. Sorry, kids.
Oh my. Mm.
You're very nice. You're very nice, and I love you lots. But as talking about just like a goal achieved, most people go through their lives really having certain dreams that they want to pursue. Not everybody gets to do them.
Oh, absolutely.
And for me, that was my chance to do it. And it's a small part, and I'm sure there are plenty of people that roll their eyes at my major film debut.
Right,
But
right.
I watched that film and it's just everything. I don't care what anybody says. I had the best week of my life and did something that is remembered. I've talked to plenty of people at conventions and they'll say, that's like my favorite scene in the whole film. It's like, I'm so stoked to have been a part of it. Believe me, you can't possibly know how much fun that was.
That's
So,
pretty incredible.
oh,
All right. So, yes.
anything else? That's pretty much everything I can tell you
You
about that
said
one.
oh, so I'm like, oh.
No, no, sorry. I was leaving. I have a dangling participle out there. Sorry.
It's okay to dangle every once in a while. Yeah,
not
you were
not in schools. I'm telling you.
you worked on films like Hook and the people under the stairs. Can you share insights into the stunt coordination and any behind the scenes experiences from these productions?
Yeah, gosh, Hook was an interesting one. I wasn't on Hook as long as I was meant to be. We did a thing where they bring us in. Steven Spielberg wanted to see what it was going to look like to attack the pirate ship. Now, you know, if you've ever been a little kid that was all obsessed with pirates, the idea of playing pirates is just part of your world. And here we are in this soundstage, the biggest soundstage on the lot, and we're about 60 feet up, hanging from ropes, dressed as pirates or Lost Boys, whichever it was. And we're going to swing out on these ropes. And there is a full size sailing ship in water over there on this other side. And there's yard arms that we got to swing to and we got to grab onto them. And I remember looking at the guy next to me as we're getting ready to do this. And I said, we're getting paid for this. He's like, I know, right? It's like, dude, I would do this for free. This is so cool.
Bloody hell,
You
yeah!
got the costumes, you got the boat, and the set was the biggest set I think I've ever seen. There's this huge ship in the water, but beyond it is what looks like condos. But the condos are old sailing ships stacked one atop the next, like old crashed sailing
That's
vessels that looked
that's
like condos
incredible.
or apartment buildings. And it was just visually just absolutely stunning. And I just remember thinking, this is what a big budget movie is. I mean, this is Robin Williams and Julia Roberts and Bob Hoskins and Dustin Hoffman. I mean, this is, you know, one of the most amazing casts ever. And it was just one of those, again, one of those moments where you say to yourself, gosh, I'm lucky. Wow. How did I end up here? You know, what a great experience. What a wonderful time to have. How much fun can you have, you know, in one moment? And it was dangerous. Yeah. But I think I was like 25 at the time. You don't know what danger is when you're 25 because you think you're invincible and you think you're going to last forever. So I don't remember it being terrifying. I remember it being very interesting. I'm like, okay, you could buy it doing this, but that's not going to happen today. You're going to be fine, you know. And so,
Yeah.
just really fun stuff. People Under the Stairs, again, uh, another film that I had no idea had the following that it has. Wes Craven, once again, of course, you know,
Yeah, you
legend.
were telling me about how kind of shook you were when you found out that there was this big following for this film.
Yeah,
We have some seriously um, interested individuals out there that love this genre type and that nostalgic feel to it.
yeah, and that was another one where you know, it's funny. I do some of these conventions a few times a year now, and I'm going to be doing one in Ohio coming up in September.
Yeah, give it a plug since you're
Yeah,
here.
it's something called the Erie Culture Fest, and it's late September, and we've got the whole primary cast of the show coming. That's going to be uh, Byron Quinton. I cannot think of his last name. The little boy in it, the guy Roach, Sean Whalen, and also the Stairmaster himself, as they call him. That was before Stairmasters were an exercise thing. Uh, but we did a show last year, and it was a lot of fun. I hadn't seen the guys, you know, 36, 37 years. And Jan Birch, sorry.
Isn't that incredible that after such a span of work time and um, uh, events of going to these conventions and all of that, that people they're still standing up waiting to get into the door of these conventions to be able to go and
Yeah,
talk to these people who come from these iconic horror films.
it was really stunning to me. I'll just tell you that when I decided I was, you know, kind of done with my film career. You can't do stunts forever. It's pretty rough on the body, and so I decided to go into doing other businesses. And when I did, I wouldn't tell people that I was in horror films. I won't say that I was ashamed, but I didn't want people to know because I didn't want people to. I didn't want to lose any credibility I might have for my regular day gig by letting people know that I'd done horror films. And I really felt like horror films weren't going to last. the Draculas and the Frankensteins and those things. Of course, those are classic films. But I never saw any of the films that I did as having the potential to get that kind of status. And then a few years ago, when a friend of mine started doing conventions, he had talked to me about doing some as well. And when I went to some of these shows, people are like, "Oh my gosh!" They see my poster and it's got all the different horror films I've worked on, and they're like, "You're in every franchise that I actually, have ever loved." And it's like,
Yes.
really? And it changed my attitude. I was never ashamed of them per se, but it wasn't that I wanted anybody to know, because I just thought, these are kind of throwaways in
Do
my mind.
you know that people in the horror community are some of the most diligent people there are in, like, I would say, across genre?
Oh yeah, in any fandom. I mean, and I'm not just saying this, I mean this. My favorite thing about going to the shows is watching the people and the cosplayers and the people that come to these things. I had thought might be a little odd at first, because who's like got horror just as their primary thing, and these people are out a lot of weekends. They're not just out there at things, at Halloween. They're out there, halfway to Halloween. They're out there throughout the year, and they just love these films. And a quick story about a kid I met in Ohio, actually. He's not a kid, but he was when he first started watching these. He told me that these films kind of saved his life. And I was kind of like, wait, you're going to have to unspool that story. And he said, I had cancer when I was a kid. And they had basically given me a very poor prognosis. And I would watch the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and I would follow Nancy, or, whatever character that was the final girl. And they got by on their survival instinct alone. They weren't the fastest. They weren't the strongest. They weren't even the smartest, but they had such a will to live. And he said, I identified with that will to live, and said, if she can make it, I can make it. And I sat there in my chair, just dumbfounded. I mean, the sweetest, sincerest guy ever. He introduced me to his kids when I was at this convention a few months ago, and said, the films you did and the work that you've done in this genre of films gave me a sense of what survival's all about. He says, and here I am, got my own kids now, and I'm raising them on horror films. And it gave me an entirely new perception of who the fans are, why they're fans. They're not just into watching somebody, get cut in half with a chainsaw. This means something more to them than that. I mean, they do enjoy that, which seems a little odd, but the root heart in it is a sense of survival, a sense of we can make it through this. We're badass, we're tough. We can do this. And when you see it that way, it's a very different world.
Yes.
Like I said, I just looked at these as just films, and these folks, they were raised on these. So, for them, this is like their favorite song or their favorite, television show. These things are a part of their growing up, and they mean a lot. And so I stopped thinking that I should, I stopped rolling my eyes at the deep, depth of their feelings about this. I've been to Star Trek conventions because I did some Star Trek, and it's not the same crowd. They're devoted to their show, no two ways about it,
Oh,
but they don't
yes.
have the creativity isn't there. You should see the artwork I get to sign. Oh my gosh, so talented. Crossovers of Deadpool and Freddy called Fred Pool. I mean, just
Yeah. We got to
just
get some
anywhere,
of those photos on here. That would be
yeah.
bomb diggity. Love that.
Anywhere, and anywhere and anything, these folks, it just really brings out their creative side, and they
Absolutely.
really enjoy it. And it's not dark and dreary and goth and all that. These people are celebrating this. And so, like I said, between the artwork and the posters and the things you sign, you just see a level of creativity that just blossoms in this genre in a way it doesn't do anything else. I mean, at least anything I've ever seen. I've never seen that in the Star Trek folks. I've never seen it in the comic book world. I mean, there's some of that, but they more enjoy where these folks participate. And I think that's the key to it. Their level, and you can go to a show, fly your freak flag high. You just do whatever you want to do. Nobody judges you. You go and you have a good time. Nobody's looking at you like, nice outfit, weirdo. No, you're with 10,000 of your closest friends for a whole weekend, and you can have a good time, and nobody raises an eyebrow. In fact, if you look a little too straightforward, it's like, I'm sorry, what are you dressed as? Like, uh, I don't know, me, like, come on, man, put some effort in. So it's been a real eye opener and a most wonderful of friends. I mean, I've got friends all over the country now, people who I really do call friends, and I we share baby pictures, and we do, we talk. They really have become friends because we're part of this tribe, this community of people,
Absolutely.
and they are the nicest people. They are the most generous people. I've told this story. There was a girl I saw that had found out that she was very ill. She posted on Facebook, said, she was going to be out of work for a while. She needed some money to get by. And I think she had a goal of like $1,000. And in the course of a weekend, I think there was $45,000 raised. And not from people who knew her. Hey, you're part of our team. You are part of our tribe. We take care of our own. They supported that girl just because she was well known at conventions. They knew who she was. She's one of us. Um, we take care of our own. And I'll tell you, man, I haven't seen that kind of activity in my church sometimes. You know, these people love and care for each other in a way. I think it's that, hey, we're all the weirdos. And so
Mhm.
if somebody's willing to be to admit they're part of our team, we're going to take care of them. So
So,
really touching, really.
cool, cool. All right. So, a little bit of background for those who are watching this show and do not know about how this show, Zombiepalooza Radio, got started. We started because of a veteran who was having a situation that was, I think, more than a PTSD event, and so I got him together with about six of his friends who wrote in apocalyptic. Zombie apocalyptic to be specific, and got them together so they could hear each other, and they started really forming a deeper bond. And out of that, 12 years and so later comes this. So, yes, horror and apocalyptic are some of the biggest genres that support people at a very, very guttural level. And I am very proud to be a part of
Unintentional.
that.
No,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's really like I said, it's not like anything I've ever seen anyplace else. And that's, I think, what makes it special is that the folks really do. Hey, there I am. There I'm a zombie.
I know, right? Let's
I
talk
know.
about that since we're on talking about zombies for a hot minute.
Yeah, that's from Return of the Living Dead Part 2. And that is me as what was called a utility zombie, meaning I'm a zombie, but I have no particular name or face, or I'm not doubling somebody. I am my own zombie. you know, everyone needs to find your true zombie. And I was also in that same film the double for. There was a kid named Billy in the show, and I was his stunt double as well. I'm a little guy; you can't really tell from this framing, but I'm only about 5'6" tall. At the time, I was about 120 pounds, so I made a pretty good double for kids. I got little spindly. Well, I still have little spindly girl arms. Um, so, I said, "Don't do that." Now it makes me look even worse. No, I really. Wow. Like, is that a stick figure? What are you
Ow!
doing?
Ow!
So,
Love that.
so another one of my favorites, because one of the things there's a scene in that film where I get run over by a truck, and so we
Ow!
did. Yeah, so we do the scene, and I turned to the director, got him Ken Wiederhorn, very nice guy, and I said, "Hey, I just want to thank you for bringing me out." He goes, what are you doing?" I said, "Am I not done?" He goes, "Why would you be done?" I said, "I just got run over by a truck. Am I not dead?" He said, "Bill, you were dead when we started."
You're a zombie.
There is a zombie. And I was like, and
They're already
all of
dead.
a sudden, the wave of realization goes across me. I'm like, oh wait, I don't. I don't die, you know? And he's like, yeah, you got a bunch of stuff. You're going to get thrown off a catwalk. You're going to get stabbed in the
Yes.
face. You're going to get electrocuted. You know, we got
Uh,
all bunch of mayhem for you
I
yet.
would be like, oh, hold up, there's electrocuted.
And
Excuse
yeah,
me.
so, and we were filming nights and weekends. I mean, we were doing, and I had another show that I was doing at the same time during the day. So I would work 8 hours plus during the day, go home, get something to eat, get a few hours of sleep, and then race over to the set for the second film. And although that sounds very stressful, it ain't. It was, again, the embodiment of everything I had dreamt of. Not only am I successful enough to have a film, I'm successful enough to have
Oh,
two films
yes.
simultaneously. What kind of luck is that?
Damn.
So
Well,
yeah, it was a lot of fun. The stunts were fun. The cast was great.
we're gonna talk about
And
another stunt.
yes,
Surprise, right? All right.
go.
So in Case Buster, directed by
This
Wes
was
Craven,
my
you
very first
performed
film.
a car chase stunt. So how did this project influence your career trajectory
Yeah.
in stunt work?
Well, I'll tell you that at the time I wanted to be an actor, but a lot of agents and stuff would say, you know, you're a good looking guy, you're a nice kid, you're a good actor, but you're just too little. And so you're just not going to get the kind of work unless you try not to look like the young leading man. Try to look like the young leading man's goofy friend. And this was kind of depressing because I really wanted to be in movies and they were kind of telling me, you're not going to be the actor that you think. And so a gentleman named Tony Caesar, who was Wes Craven's stunt coordinator for more than 18 films, he was also a friend of a friend, and we'd become friends over time. And he said, "Hey, there's this film or this television show, a Disney show, being done by Wes Craven, who I sort of knew about Nightmare on Elm Street. Wasn't a big part of my filmdom at the time." And he said, "You want to come out and do it?" I said, "What do I have to do?" He said, "All you got to do is sit in the car." I said, "Is the car on fire? Is the car, you know, jumping off of a cliff? And what is the car doing?" He said, "No, it's just, you know, we can't put kids in the car because we don't want to hurt anybody. And we're going to be going through the LA River and we're going to be going back and forth up and down the sides. Nothing
Uh,
remarkably dangerous, but if it were to turn over, that would be scary. And it could happen. You know, things happen. You'll be, you know, protected." But they said, "You're just a passenger." I'm like, "Deal." So they said it was the day I got my union card was the day I got that job. So it was a big deal. It was like, oh, it begins. My career in movies actually is real now. And nobody actually, I don't think a lot of people knew that Wes did a lot of television, a lot of episodic television, other than his horror films. He was doing Disney movies. That was a Disney Thursday night movie of the week. You know,
that's
so it was very. It was my first thing. It's what gave me my start. And when other stunt coordinators saw it, they're like, "Who's the kid?" And it's like, "No, that's not a kid. That's a guy named Bill Perry." And they said, "Gosh, he's little. He makes a good double." And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And so then I didn't have to do auditions anymore. People just called me up and said, "Hey, can you work Wednesday?" Like, "Yeah, what are we doing?" "Ah, you'll find out when you get there." And I had a background in skateboarding and martial arts and motorcycle riding and BMX and all this stuff. So I did a lot of kids stuff, you know, sports that kids would be seen doing. And so the karate was good for fight scenes. The bicycles, you know, you got to get run over by a car. Who hasn't get run over by a car? And so you kind of had these skills sort of part of my skill set before I even started. And then as I got into stunts, I'd learn how to do them for camera. You know, how to make sure you hit that mark every time so that you're in focus when your shot hits. So it really did inform my whole career. That was the day it just kind of leapt into reality, from being my dream as a little kid to, yeah, you actually got your first union job. You know, big step.
that's pretty cool. Let's talk about what's below.
The Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare. Yeah, the final. Well, wasn't the final. I asked Wes Craven one time, "When is Freddy gonna die?" And he said, "When he stops making money, kid." And so at this point, Freddie was still making money, and they decided they were going to do one more. Or it wasn't really the last one; they made a few others, but got to double a gentleman named Sean Greenblatt, who I'd also doubled in the movie Newsies. And there's a scene at the opening where they do a Wizard of Oz kind of thing, where the kid's in this house and it's spinning through the air and it's falling and it lands on Elm Street, right in front of Freddy's house, and I fall out the window. I never leave by the door. Why couldn't I? Always go through a window. So I fall through the window, 7 feet down to the ground below. Bam! I hit the ground, and there's no pads, no pads that I can wear, no pads on the ground. Concrete, 20 degrees at night for some reason in California, which doesn't happen real often.
What the
Yeah, hit
heck?
that ground hard. And we did it, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times. By the end of the night, I was just beaten
Beat.
bloody, just beaten. Because I would hit the ground and then I'd roll out of the way, and then the actor would pop up in the same shot. And they wanted it to be one long shot. Me hitting the ground, the actor walking up, and then he runs to Freddy's house, and the camera's right behind him. A steady cam is following him, and they were having problems with getting a nice smooth shot to the house. It wasn't my fault. Bill's
Oh
hitting the
my,
ground here, people. I got ribs to take care of, you know. But
incredible.
another one of those things where, I always say even a bad meal is a good story. And even though it was a difficult night, I made a pretty good chunk of cash. And I got a great story and some neat scars from that one.
Damn. I am just like, wow. You
At the time it didn't seem like wow. At the time it just seemed like fun. But when I look back on it now, because people ask, and of course I've always got a story for everything. And
you
I look back at that and go, yeah, that was pretty cool, huh? You kind of forget because it was you, you know, that other people would look at that and shake their heads and go, "You're out of your mind. What's wrong with you? How many heads to the head have you had?" Yeah, yeah, a number.
So looking back at your multifaceted career, what advice would you offer to aspiring stunt
Mm.
performers and actors entering the industry today?
That is a really good but impossible question. Right now, there is almost no production going on anywhere near Los Angeles. When I was coming up, if you weren't in Los Angeles, you weren't working. There was a few productions in Toronto, a few things maybe in North Carolina, but now almost everything is not in Hollywood. Not they call them Hollywood films, but that's because they're Hollywood production companies. But most films now they're being done in the Midwest, they're being done in the South, they're being done in Canada. Um, there's just not that much work here anymore. And so much of the work that's out there is fairly low budget. It's hard to make a living at this anyway. And now with so much non-union production, you get more work, but you don't get paid for it as well, and you don't get the residuals that we get, where you get a piece of the profit that the film makes over the course of years. So, gosh, it would be really hard to recommend it. I mean, even then, I would tell people, if this isn't the only thing in the world that will make you happy, if this isn't the only thing that you can imagine yourself doing, please try to find something else, because it's a very difficult life spent chasing what it is that you want to do. Rewarding for me, I mean, I'm happy. I wouldn't give it up for the world. But when you watch somebody who's not as successful and you see them struggle and take crappy night jobs so they can keep their days free to do auditions and exercise and get all the skills they need, and if they're not making money, it's miserable to watch. It's you just see that person struggling so hard, wanting so bad, just like you did. And if so it's a difficult career. I don't recommend it, not because it's not fun, but because the lifestyle is very, very obsessive compulsive. You have to care about nothing else, and so that's my advice.
So I know that we talked a little bit about this film already. Is there anything that happened to you psychologically
You know,
within this film or any other film where your being was permanently changed because of either a stunt
hmm,
or a film that you were in?
that's a great question. It's funny when you make a horror film, and I don't mean this to derail the question, but watching a film made is like watching paint dry while sitting in the sun. It's slow, it's tedious. There's not like I would come in at 6 in the morning, get my makeup for whatever character I'm going to play or whoever I'm doubling, and I might not shoot until 7 p.m. that night. So that 12, 13 hours spent sitting around is just waiting. And so unless you have a really significant part in a particular film, you don't usually get that much time spent in character. You do what you do. In People Under the Stairs, it's a very gruesome sort of show. It's a comedy, but it's a horror comedy, and I found that the imagery was really um, the kind of funnier part of that. I'm standing right next to Wes, and I'm wearing this, can't see because somebody's blinded me. And so Wes is like, "Where is that guy? Where is he?" And he's like, and I'm standing right next to him. He says, Where's racing around?" I said, "Do you mean William?" He goes, "Stay close next time." That was right.
Where are you at? Where are you at?
And then I come bursting through a wall. So I came bursting through the wall, so that that solidified that name. But that is, that's one of those ones where I remember the imagery kind of sticking with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually not as big a fan of gore as one would might assume, and so something that looks really realistic kind of gets me. Kind of gets me a little queasy. And in that particular one, there's so much blood and guts and dismembered bodies and stuff. I
That's
remember
why
that.
I picked that one to ask you that question, because I was like, that would have messed me up if I was on that
Yeah, yeah.
there.
I think the other one would have been Lost Boys. One of my favorite films. If I had to watch any one of my films I was in, only one film for the rest of my life, I could only watch one. That would be it. Great film. The mood was great. The actors were great. Party kind of set. A lot of kids. A lot of uh, testosterone fueled fun. And I just remember watching it and thinking, that was a good film. That was a good film, independent of anything I did in it. Kiefer Sutherland's amazing. Jason Patrick. Still got a thing for Jamie Gertz. Jamie, if you're there, I love you. Um, just a really fun, again, comedic elements to it, but still very scary. And just one of those things where I worked for the Coreys on that one, Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, and I also did another movie with them later. And I just remember just thinking, what a fun job this is, because they really were enjoying themselves. It wasn't taken so seriously. When you're acting, but when you're not acting and you're in all of this makeup, of course you're goofing off. You're having fun with it because you're dressed like a vampire. Come on, have some fun. If that doesn't, make you laugh or get a smile out of you, what will?
Vampires do have a lot of fun.
They
Yes, we
do,
do.
yeah. Sleep all day,
I know.
party all
Play
night.
all night. That's
It's fun, fun to
that's
be a
just
vampire.
the way to be.
Never grow old, never die.
Absolutely. I know, right? All right. So, horror demands unique stunt work, more blood, more screams, more chaos. What's the one horror stunt you've done that pushed your physical limits or made you think this might actually be dangerous?
You know, uh, Return of the Living Dead Part Two had some of that. The meat truck, as as I alluded to, there's a scene where this little kid is trying to rescue his friends, and he's just a little kid, and he's maybe 7 or 8 years old, and he's driving this truck, and I am this other zombie that's been his bully is now a bully and a zombie, and so he's just run him over with this truck, and I remember they said, okay, that in fact, there's again a video on YouTube of this actual thing where Ken Wiederhorn, the director, says, "This is point of impact." And he's pointing at me, and I got this look on my face, like, oh, great. And so I said, he said, the truck is going to stop here. He's standing here. And they tied the truck to a telephone pole. So it could only go so far. So that truck's going to hit me and then it's going to stop. So it can't run me over like wheels and tires. It's going to stop before it gets to that point. But I'm standing right in front of it. And I remember, and you'll see this if you ever find the video on YouTube, I put my hands out like this as it's about to hit me. And Ken's like, "What's that?" I said, "What?" He goes, "What's with the hands?" And I said, well, I'm getting hit by a truck. He goes, you're a zombie, Bill. You're not afraid of death. You're already dead. I want you to stand up straight. I want you to put your hands at your side and just let it rock you. I'm thinking, okay, well, all right. So I went back behind where we were, after where the truck would hit me, and made sure there were no rocks and bottles and glass and, things in the dirt. And we did it twice, and he hit me pretty good. I just had to stand there and just kind of grin and just take it. And it's a very hard thing not to want to protect yourself. um, you know, Survival instincts kick in. And so I think I did finally put my hands kind of like this. I mean, they were down here at my hips, but I kind of put them out in front just as the actual thing hit me, because the camera is actually in the cab of the truck. So there's really no way around it. But they couldn't see my hands when I went up. So I get run over twice. And I remember thinking, all right, well, if it doesn't kill me, this will hurt. And we did some other things, high falls and other stunts where, not probably going to kill you, but, could easily have
Right.
caused
I got.
serious,
I
serious
have
bodily.
a. I have a video that I believe is one of yours.
That's Nightmare on Elm Street 4. The great Andrus Jones. There's me, there's Andrus. And there's him, there's me, doing a little nunchuck action. And then we turn back again. So I make a pretty good double for this guy. And great Lisa Wilcox there. This kid is going to have his showdown with Freddy, but it's going to be a karate fight. So they needed somebody with some martial arts background. That was me. Very nice guy. I see him out on the road from time to time as well. Andrus, good kid. Also, great musician as well.
Cool. All right. So we're moving along.
Yeah.
So let's see here. You narrated over 36 audiobooks. How does your background in acting and stunt inform your approach to audiobook narration?
That's a great one. And you get great questions, by the way.
Thank you.
It's funny. Audiobooks are an interesting deal. I have this one particular publisher I work with out of England, who I'm doing a set of 26 books, the A to Z of horror. And I think I'm on L right now. L is for lycanthrope. And so I've got a whole book about werewolves. And one of the things that I do as an actor, I like to do cold reading. And when I say cold, I don't mean I read it just once and then I recorded it. I mean, I have never read it. I have no idea what it's about. I don't know where it's going. I don't know what I'm going to say until it comes out my mouth. And I love that, because I think that when I read, I'm as surprised as the listener is to what's happening in the story. It also makes it a little more lucrative, because you get paid by the hour, but you get paid by how many hours you finish, not how many hours you work.
Right.
So if you can do that film, if it's a 5-hour book and you can finish it in 10 hours instead of 20 hours, well, you're making more per hour because you're finishing the book faster. And I really enjoy doing them. I've been doing this one that I had to do D is for Demons. And it's 13 stories in each book, written by independent authors. And each one had
That's
its own
cool.
demon. Yeah. And so I got 13 different demonic voices I got to do. And after a while, my throat is so sorry for doing my demonic voices. And finally, one of the stories was this story of a girl who gets possessed. And in the story, she says, sometimes you want, I think we all wonder what our demonic voice would be. She said, but because it's me, it was just my voice. I'm like, thank you very much for that. Give me a chance to rest my pipes. But they're really fun to do. And I've really gotten a sense of pacing and diversity in horror. There are authors from Russia. There are authors from South America. There are authors from England, United States, everywhere. And so you get this sense of what scares a particular culture. What scares
Yes.
Russians is very different from what scares us.
Absolutely.
What scares, the Brits and some Europeans, very different. And so the stories are uniquely amazing. I've done a lot of books for other authors and other people. They're not always great. These are always great. If you see them online, they're on Amazon and Audible. They're called the A to Z of horror by a company called Red Cape Publishing. I'm not plugging them. I just, if you like them, if
Oh,
you
you
like,
need to plug them. Yeah, that's what we're here for, right? Speaking of what we're here for, transitioning from stunt work to writing. What
yes.
inspired you to author horror novelettes like By His Hand and its sequel, Out of His Mind?
It's for me. I never thought of myself as a writer. I always thought I was a pretty good, good with wordplay. I've done some comedy stuff here and there, and so there's always wordplay. It plays a big part in that. This book you're looking at here, the cover of, is something called By His Hand. I had a nightmare, possibly the worst thing I could ever imagine. I mean, actually, not possibly, absolutely the worst thing I could ever imagine. And I woke up in the morning and it was so in my mind. I could just remember it so vividly. And my wife and I take our dogs for a little walk each morning. And my wife's a psychologist. And I said, God, I had the craziest dream. And I gave her about 2 minutes of it. And she said, please don't tell me anymore. That's really, really disturbing. And I said, yeah, it really is. And so later that afternoon, I wrote to the publisher and I said, hey, I got this idea for a story. And I sent it to him and he said, gosh, that's scary. And I said, yeah, right. And he said, you going to write it? And I said, oh, I'm not really a writer. And he said, can I do it? Please, So a month goes by. I asked him where he was at. And he said, I haven't even started. I've been so busy. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take a swing at it. So I got at my computer and I wrote. And I wrote fast. It's a very short story. It's only probably about an hour read, maybe 40, 60 pages, somewhere around there. And I wrote it very briefly because I didn't like spending time in this place. It's very, very disturbing, very dark stuff. I'll just tell you that everybody I care about is harmed, but only the people I care about. And I can't do anything about it, even though I'm entirely aware of what's happening. I can't stop it. And it's hurting the people I love the most, the very worst. So it's pretty dark stuff. And I wanted to get it out of my head. And so I wrote it. And I sent it to the publisher, and I sent it to a friend of mine that teaches novel writing at Santa Monica College here in Los Angeles. And he called me from an airplane and said, dude, what the hell? And I said, what? And he goes, that story screwed me up. And I said, thanks. You're welcome. What am I supposed to say to that? He goes, I'm not normally a horror fan. He said, what draft is this? And I said, that's the first draft. Is it okay? And he goes, whoa, dude, I teach novel writing, and this is not like what most people do for their first work. He said, there's a very physical sort of presence that you bring to these people and to the actions that happen. And that's very developed. He said, I think you have a skill here you may not be aware that you have, which was very, very flattering, but he's a friend. So, he's probably just being nice. And then my publisher calls me and says, so February 17. And I said, what's February 17? He said, well, it's publication day. I said, you're going to publish my book? And he said, what did you think I was going to do? I said, I don't know. I thought you'd tell me to cut my fingers off and stay away from computers, that I'm a hack and I'm a loser and I should just quit. He goes, no, I mean, I'm going to fix a few commas here and there, some, grammar issues, but a few. I mean, we're really ready to roll. And so we published it 3 months later. And no one was more surprised or happy about that than me.
That's amazing.
I love, I see, reviews on Amazon and I see reviews, on different websites. And the thing that I really love is that people are shocked and they're saddened by the events, because they wouldn't be sad if they didn't care about the people.
Right.
Making someone real out of the ether of your brain is a difficult task, but an enjoyable one. And when I find out that somebody says, oh, when I read about what happened to Jill, I stopped reading for 3 days. I just couldn't take it. It was just too emotional. It's like, oh, wow, I'm can't tell you how pleased I am that I traumatized you, because it means that I did my job.
Yes.
I got you. And then about maybe 6, 8 months later, the publisher called me and said, where's book 2? I said, dude, I don't want to go to this place again, man. It's a dark place. I have to really, in order to really write something really, really graphic, you have to imagine it. You got to be able to smell it. You got to be able to feel it and taste it. You got to
Yes.
really live that moment so that you can put into words what it is you're seeing and feeling. And I didn't want to go there again. And my best friend, a guy named Lee Waddell, was Ghostface in Scream, actually, um, said to me, "Well, what if?" And he points at this idea, and I was like, "Damn it, that's good." And all of a sudden, it's just writing itself in my brain. And I was like, "Oh shit! Now I guess I got to do it." And so again, I pumped out another quick 60 pages, and he published it a year to the day from the first, which the story picks up exactly 1 year to the day. So the marketing just writes itself. So on the February 17th of the following year, you find out that it's been a year. This character that's in this thing has been alone and isolated for a solid year. No one talks to him. There's no food. There's no water. There's no light. There's no music. There's no conversation. What would that do to you? To be completely living in absolute isolation despite the presence. All those things exist, but no one will allow you to experience them. What would that do to you? And so the story continues. So that's but what I was, that's what I did with my summer vacation. Wrote those two books, and then I was at a show, and somebody said to me, this would make a great graphic novel. It's like, it really would. There's a context of that where you have what he's saying, you have what he's thinking, which are different things. You have what he's doing, which is another third different thing. And so a graphic novel gives you the ability to see what he's thinking, see what he's saying, see what he's doing, even though they're all different. And so
Yes.
I've got that in the works. And also just because I don't even know, somebody gave me the idea. Somebody had said, "Oh, the artwork for your graphic novel kind of plays out like a coloring book." A coloring book. How sick and effed up is that? I love it.
Yeah. Do you
So
have any idea when we might be seeing any of
yeah,
these other
it's
pieces of art?
I think we're on page 22 of 28 with the
You
coloring
want to
book
give
right
a
now.
plug to
I can't yet. I don't know. Printing's
for
still going to
the
be a bit.
artist?
It'll be end of. Oh yeah. Well, the guy doing the coloring book right now is a guy named Daniel Gorman, also another Ohio resident.
Yes,
Just won a lovely award for his work on a graphic novel or a set of comics.
he's an amazing man. I've met him. I think I've
Yeah.
even interviewed him before.
Oh yeah. Daniel's just a
So,
good guy.
yes.
Just a real good guy and a great artist. He read all this and was in. Whenever I want to work with somebody collaboratively, I want them. I don't expect them to see it as vividly as me, but
Right.
I do love when they grab a hold of it and go, wait, 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 I have an idea. It's like, great,
Yeah,
bring
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I want to collaborate. I want you to take. I have a limited artistic ability. I'm a decent artist, but I'm not like these guys. And so they will imagine camera angles, of watching it from up here instead of from here,
Yes.
and the way that they will pick which scenes are the ones that really carry the action and the story forward because you can't show everything.
Right. Oh, so speaking of camera angles,
You know, maybe maybe making a movie. Uh,
so speaking of camera angles, do we have a screenplay?
so somebody we do screenplay.
Looks like we maybe lost William. Let's see if we can get him back. I wonder if there's a storm in his area. Whoops. I'll give him a few more minutes to see if he can pop back on there. Oh my. So, yeah, this is what happens when we do a live show, and sometimes things can get rather weathery, and they can tend to knock people offline. Mm, I'll give him a couple more minutes to see if he can get back into the stream. And right now, we were talking with William R. Perry. Uh, let's see if I can get him on the. Let's see. Boy, this reminds me of the old days. Woohoo! I think he might have completely lost connection out there. I'm not exactly sure what part of the globe he was coming in from, but I know that there is a lot of storms out there. All right, so I am going to end the show. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I appreciate your time, Mr. Perry, and hope that we can do this again sometime. This is Jackie Chin. You've been watching Zombiepalooza Radio Live. Good night.